The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the Arizona wilderness, turning the arid landscape into a tableau of gold and amber. Cole Morgan crouched behind the weathered limestone ridge, his Winchester Model 1873 steady in his calloused hands. Through the rising heat waves, he counted 5 Apache riders tracking something, or someone, across his land. 7 years after Appomattox, Cole still moved with the precise caution that had kept him alive as a Union Army scout. His finger rested outside the trigger guard of his rifle, a disciplined habit. The weapon's walnut stock bore the scars of 100 campaigns, much like the man who wielded it. Cole adjusted his position, calculating the distance. 400 yards, a challenging shot, but one he'd made before during the war's bloodiest days. He didn't aim to kill. Not yet. These men were following a trail that cut across the northeast corner of his 600 acres. His property, his rules, his responsibility. The wind shifted, carrying a sound that wasn't hoofbeats or creaking leather. A woman's voice, strained, desperate. Cole's eyes narrowed as he tracked the rider's focus to a ravine 50 yards ahead. There, struggling in one of his own snares, was a young Apache woman. "Damn it all," Cole muttered, adjusting his rifle. The equation had changed. The lead Apache rider dismounted, approaching the trapped woman with a knife drawn. Cole recognized the look in the man's eyes. Not rescue, but possession. The woman's defiance was clear even at this distance, her body tense with the determination of someone who would die before surrendering. Cole had 10 seconds to make a decision. The lead rider raised his blade. Cole exhaled half a breath and squeezed the trigger. The rifle cracked, sending a 44-40 round into the ground at the rider's feet. The Apache warrior leapt back, scanning the hills. Cole worked the lever action, chambering another round with practiced efficiency. "That's far enough!" Cole's voice carried across the canyon, amplified by the rock walls. "You're on Morgan land now." The Apache warriors wheeled their horses, seeking the source of the voice and shot. Cole remained hidden, shifting positions with the silence his years as a scout had taught him. He fired again, closer this time, making his message clear. After a tense standoff, the Apache riders retreated, disappearing into the scrubland. But Cole knew they wouldn't go far. They had the patience of hunters. When the dust settled, he approached the trapped woman cautiously. Her eyes blazed with a mixture of pain and fury, her clothing torn and bloodied from both the snare and what appeared to be a bullet wound in her shoulder. "I'm going to cut you loose," Cole said, drawing his Smith & Wesson hunting knife. The woman's hand flashed with unexpected speed, revealing a small blade concealed in her boot. Cole barely dodged the strike aimed at his throat, catching her wrist with a grip forged by years of breaking wild horses. "I won't die without a fight," she hissed in accented English. "I'm not here to kill you," Cole replied, his voice steady, "but you're bleeding out, and those men will be back by nightfall." Her eyes, dark as obsidian, studied him with the wariness of a cornered wolf. "Why would a white man help an Apache?" Cole released her wrist and stepped back. "I judge people by their actions, not their blood." He gestured to the knife still clutched in her hand. "Now you can try to kill me again and probably bleed to death in this trap, or you can let me help you." A moment passed, stretched taut by distrust and necessity. Finally, she lowered the blade. "My name is Sarah," she said, the admission itself a concession. Cole worked quickly, freeing her from the snare and examining her wound. The bullet had gone clean through her shoulder, but infection was setting in. As he fashioned a temporary bandage from his bandana, Sarah watched his movements with guarded curiosity. "Those men," Cole asked, "why are they hunting you?" Sarah's jaw tightened. "They served Night Hunter, war chief from the northern mountains. He arranged to trade me to a white man named Prescott for rifles." Her voice dropped. "I know things about silver in the mountains. My grandfather showed me before he died." Cole helped her to her feet. In the distance, eagle-eyed, He spotted dust rising. The Apache riders were circling back. "Can you ride?" he asked. "Better than most of your cavalry," she replied with unexpected defiance. The sun was sinking toward the western mountains as Cole led Sarah to his homestead. A sturdy cabin of pine logs with a stone foundation, a barn, and corral built by his own hands after the war had left him with nothing but nightmares and a government land grant. Inside, Cole worked methodically to clean and treat Sarah's wound. His hands moved with practiced precision, skills learned patching up fellow soldiers during the bloody campaign through Tennessee. "This will hurt," he warned, preparing to remove the bullet fragments with a pair of sterilized tweezers. Sarah didn't flinch as he worked, her eyes fixed on the ceiling beams. "Why do you live alone in this place, Cole Morgan?" Cole remained focused on his task. "War took my taste for crowds," he answered simply. Then after extracting a metal shard, "Lost my wife and boy to typhoid while I was fighting at Chancellorsville. Came west to start again." "Yet you risk everything by helping me," she observed. Cole bandaged the wound with clean linen. "I've seen what happens when good men do nothing." He stood up, washing blood from his hands in a basin. "Rest. Tomorrow we'll discuss what to do about your pursuers." Night fell across the desert like a heavy blanket. Cole checked his weapons. The Winchester, his Colt Peacemaker, and a shotgun mounted above the door, before settling into a chair positioned to watch both the entrance and windows. Outside, coyotes called to one another across the vast emptiness. Somewhere out there, men were planning, waiting. This wasn't Cole's first siege. It wouldn't be his last. Dawn broke with the stillness that often precedes violence. Cole had slept in 30-minute intervals throughout the night, a soldier's rest. He found Sarah already awake, her color improved despite the severity of her wound. "They'll attack today," she said without preamble, accepting the coffee he offered. Cole nodded. "I know. I found tracks at the North Ridge before sunrise." He pulled back the curtain, revealing freshly dug rifle pits around the perimeter of the cabin. "I've been busy." Sarah stood with surprising steadiness. "Give me a gun. I won't be defenseless." Cole assessed her for a moment, then removed a Remington Derringer from his boot. "2 shots. Make them count." They ate a sparse breakfast of salt pork and cornbread in silence. Cole had faced Apache warriors before, both as enemies and allies during his scouting days. They were disciplined, patient fighters who respected strength and despised weakness. The attack came not with a war cry, but with silence. The first arrow struck the water barrel outside the cabin, followed immediately by rifle fire from 3 directions. Cole had anticipated this, positioning himself at the north window, where the morning sun would blind attackers. "Stay low," he instructed Sarah, who had already pressed herself against the wall beneath the east window. Cole's first shot dropped an Apache warrior who had exposed himself moving between rocks. His second forced the others to retreat to cover. The Winchester's lever action clicked rhythmically as Cole maintained steady, controlled fire. "Behind you!" Sarah suddenly shouted. Cole turned to see a warrior climbing through the rear window. With no time to aim, he swung the rifle like a club, connecting solidly with the man's jaw. They grappled briefly before Cole drove his hunting knife between the warrior's ribs, a killing blow delivered with grim necessity rather than malice. "There will be more," Sarah said as the gunfire outside temporarily subsided. Cole reloaded, his movements economical. "Not Apache," he replied, nodding toward the window. "Different horses, different trouble." 2 riders approached from the east, white men with the hard look of mercenaries. One wore a silver star that caught the sunlight. "Morgan," called the lead rider, "this is Deputy Marshal Willis. Come out and talk." Cole exchanged glances with Sarah. "Stay inside," he said. Before stepping onto the porch, Winchester held non-threateningly but ready. "Marshal," Cole acknowledged, recognizing the man from Silver Creek, the nearest settlement. "Got ourselves a situation, Morgan," Willis said, spitting tobacco juice into the dust. Heard you're harboring an Apache girl, one with a bounty on her head. Didn't know people were property in this territory, Cole replied evenly. Willis smiled without humor. Mr. Prescott's offering $200 for her return. Says she stole something valuable from him. Prescott? Cole's face revealed nothing, but his mind worked quickly. The name matched what Sarah had told him. Mining magnate, Willis explained unnecessarily. Owns half the claims around Silver Creek. Important man. Cole studied the deputy and his companion. Bounty hunters by the look of them. And he sent you to collect his property. We're just here to uphold the law, Willis said, though his eyes betrayed different motivations. Hand her over peaceful-like, and there won't be trouble. There's already been trouble, Cole replied, nodding toward the dead Apache warrior. And there'll be more when Night Hunter returns with his war party. He shifted his weight, a subtle movement that put him in better firing position. So unless you're planning to help me fight off 20 Apache warriors, I suggest you ride back to Prescott and tell him his business with the girl isn't worth the blood it'll cost. Willis's hand hovered near his pistol. Don't be a fool, Morgan. You're outnumbered. Not yet, came a voice from behind the bounty hunters. All eyes turned to see a weathered man on horseback, rifle resting casually across his saddle. The newcomer's face bore the deep lines of frontier hardship, his gray-streaked beard and piercing blue eyes marking him as a man who'd seen his share of conflict. Maxwell, Cole acknowledged, a hint of surprise in his voice. Heard there might be excitement at the old Morgan place, Maxwell replied with a thin smile. Thought I'd see if my former sergeant needed backup. Willis glanced between the two men, recalculating his odds. This isn't over, Morgan, he said finally, wheeling his horse around. Never is, Cole replied as the deputy and his companion retreated. When they were alone, Cole turned to Maxwell. Samuel Maxwell, formerly sergeant of the 8th Illinois Cavalry, now a rancher on the neighboring property. Didn't expect to see you, Cole said. Maxwell dismounted with the stiffness of an old cavalryman. Spotted Apache sign near my south pasture. Followed it here. His eyes took in the rifle pits and defensive preparations. Just like Shenandoah, eh, Morgan? Cole led him inside, where Sarah watched warily. Ma'am, Maxwell acknowledged with a respectful nod. Over coffee, Sarah revealed the full story. The silver mine was on traditional Apache lands. Her grandfather, a tribal elder, had discovered it decades earlier, but kept it secret, fearing what white men's greed would bring to their people. On his deathbed, he'd shown Sarah its location. Prescott somehow learned about it, she explained. He made a deal with Night Hunter, weapons for the mine's location. Her face darkened. Night Hunter decided I was part of the exchange. How'd Prescott know to make this deal? Maxwell asked. The man has spies everywhere, Sarah replied, even among my people. When I refused to reveal the mine's location, Night Hunter was going to force me to marry him. So I ran. Cole and Maxwell exchanged glances, both recognizing the gravity of the situation. This wasn't just about one woman's freedom. It was about land, silver, and the kind of power that started wars in the territory. We need supplies, Cole decided, and information. They prepared to ride to Silver Creek, leaving at dusk when the Apache would be less likely to attack. Cole outfitted Sarah with men's clothing and a wide-brimmed hat to conceal her identity. The three rode in silence, each lost in their own thoughts about what awaited them. Silver Creek had grown since Cole's last visit. New mining operations had attracted fortune seekers from across the country. The main street bustled with activity even as darkness fell. Saloons doing brisk business, merchants selling supplies at inflated prices, and everywhere the restless energy of a boomtown. They stabled their horses at the livery and headed to Jennings' general store. While Maxwell purchased ammunition and supplies, Cole sought information from Jennings himself, a gossipy man who knew everyone's business. Prescott's been hiring guns, Jennings confirmed in a hushed voice. Word is he's found something big, something worth killing for. Before Cole could press for more details, commotion erupted outside. Through the window, he spotted Sheriff Thompson confronting a group of miners. Thompson, a former Confederate officer with a reputation for fairness despite his prejudices, was attempting to calm a situation that was rapidly deteriorating. Cole stepped outside, leaving Sarah hidden in the store's back room. Morgan, Thompson acknowledged curtly. Bad timing. We've got Apache trouble brewing. So I've heard, Cole replied. What's Prescott's role in all this? Thompson's eyes narrowed. Careful, Morgan. Prescott employs half this town. And owns the other half, Cole pressed. Including the law? The sheriff's hand moved to his gun. That's dangerously close to insulting, coming from a man harboring an Apache fugitive. The standoff might have escalated if Maxwell hadn't emerged from the store, positioning himself strategically beside Cole. We're just passing through, Sheriff, Maxwell said amiably, though his hand rested near his sidearm, getting supplies before heading back to our ranches. Thompson studied them both before stepping back. See that you do. And Morgan, whatever you're mixed up in, it ain't worth dying for. As they rode back to Cole's ranch under the cover of darkness, Sarah broke her silence. You could have given me up. Saved yourselves. Cole kept his eyes on the trail ahead. There are some lines a man doesn't cross. Not if he wants to recognize himself in the mirror come morning. Maxwell grunted in agreement. Besides, he added, I've seen what happens when Prescott gets his way. Man's been pushing small ranchers out for years. About time someone pushed back. They crested the final ridge overlooking Cole's property, only to pull their horses up short. Below, orange flames illuminated the night sky. The barn was ablaze. They're sending a message, Cole said grimly. No, Sarah countered, her voice tight with anger. They're making a mistake. The fire had been set with expertise, hot enough to consume the barn entirely, but contained to avoid spreading to the surrounding grassland. This wasn't random destruction. It was calculated intimidation. Cole, Maxwell, and Sarah approached cautiously, weapons ready. The attackers had withdrawn, but Cole knew better than to assume they were gone. This was just the opening move in a deadly game. They'll be watching, he murmured, scanning the darkness beyond the firelight. Maxwell nodded, his old cavalry instincts evident in his posture. Let them watch. Let them see we're not running. They spent the night reinforcing the cabin's defenses, boarding windows, positioning ammunition caches, and preparing fallback positions. Sarah worked alongside them, her determination evident in every movement despite her injured shoulder. Dawn revealed the full extent of the damage. Beyond the destroyed barn, Cole discovered his cattle slaughtered in the north pasture, 20 head of prime beef butchered and left to rot. This is Prescott's work, Maxwell said, examining distinctive boot prints around the perimeter. Apache would have taken the meat. Cole knelt, studying the ground with the focused attention of a veteran tracker. 5 men, one wearing Spanish spurs. He pointed to a distinctive pattern in the dust. Bounty hunters, professionals. Sarah's expression hardened as she surveyed the destruction. I've brought this to your doorstep. No, Cole corrected her. Greed and power did this. Same things that always start fights in these territories. He checked his Winchester methodically. And we're going to finish it. Maxwell raised an eyebrow. You suggesting we take the fight to them? Cole nodded. Prescott's expecting us to hunker down, wait for his next move. So we don't. They formulated their plan over coffee and jerky. Prescott maintained an office in Silver Creek, but his main operations were based at Diablo Canyon, a heavily guarded mining camp 10 miles south. According to Maxwell's intelligence, gathered from sympathetic townsfolk, Prescott was preparing to move a large shipment of silver the following day. The canyon narrows here, Cole indicated on a rough map drawn in the dirt. Single-file trail, perfect place for an ambush. What about Night Hunter? Sarah asked. His warriors will still be hunting me. That's why this works, Cole explained. Prescott and Night Hunter have a partnership. They'll be meeting for the exchange. Weapons for the mine location. We interrupt that meeting. We solve both problems. Maxwell whistled low. Ambitious, Sergeant. Desperate, Cole corrected. But sometimes desperate works. They spent the day preparing, cleaning weapons, crafting makeshift explosives from blasting powder, and gathering supplies. Cole taught Sarah how to prime and throw the small dynamite bundles, knowledge he'd gained during his time clearing railroad paths through the mountains. Hold it like this, he demonstrated, showing her how to twist the fuse into the blasting cap. Too tight and it'll misfire. Too loose and it'll fall out when you throw. Sarah's hands were steady as she practiced, her determination evident in the set of her jaw. Maxwell watched with approval, nodding to Cole. Girl's a natural, he murmured. Reminds me of those Tennessee mountain folk who joined up in '63. As sunset approached, they mounted up and rode south, using the gathering darkness as cover. Cole led them through hidden ravines and dry creek beds, routes known only to experienced scouts and native peoples. His years tracking deserters had taught him to move unseen through even the most open terrain. Diablo Canyon lived up to its name, sheer rock walls rising hundreds of feet, creating a natural fortress accessible only through narrow passages, easily defended by a handful of men. Cole guided them to a hidden approach he discovered years earlier while tracking rustlers, a steep, treacherous path known only to local Apache and a few experienced scouts. Single file, he instructed, dismounting. Lead your horses. One loose stone here could alert the whole camp. They ascended in silence, every step carefully placed. At the top, they secured their horses in a sheltered overhang and crawled to the canyon's edge. Below, Prescott's operation hummed with activity, miners working by lantern light, guards patrolling the perimeter, and in the center, a fortified cabin serving as Prescott's headquarters. I count 15 guards, Maxwell whispered, scanning through a brass spyglass. 2 at each entrance, others patrolling in pairs, repeating rifles, looks like new Winchesters. There, Sarah pointed to movement at the canyon's eastern entrance. Apache. Through his field glasses, Cole confirmed her observation. Night Hunter had arrived with 10 warriors, all armed with new Winchester rifles, evidence of previous deals with Prescott. The war chief was unmistakable, taller than his men, with a bear claw necklace and red paint streaking his face. Perfect timing, Maxwell murmured. Now we just need to make proper introductions. Cole outlined their plan with military precision. Maxwell would create a diversion at the western edge of the camp by placing charges at the powder magazine. Cole would use the confusion to infiltrate the central cabin and capture Prescott. Sarah, despite her protests, would remain in an overwatch position with Cole's Winchester to cover their escape. Remember, Cole told them both, checking his Colt one final time, we want Prescott alive. He's our evidence against both him and Night Hunter. And if things go wrong, Maxwell asked, the practicality of a veteran soldier. Cole's eyes hardened. If I'm not back in 20 minutes after the first explosion, get Sarah out of here. Head for Fort Buchanan. I know a captain there who'll listen. Maxwell nodded, understanding the unspoken message. He clasped Cole's forearm in the grip of brothers in arms. Just like Antietam, in and out. Except this time, Cole replied with a grim smile. We're not facing rebel artillery. Cole disappeared into the darkness, moving like a shadow along the canyon wall. Years of scouting behind enemy lines had taught him how to become invisible, a skill that had saved his life countless times. Maxwell positioned himself at the western edge, carefully placing the dynamite charges around the powder magazine. Each bundle was wrapped in cloth to muffle the initial blast, concentrating the force inward. It was a technique they'd used to destroy Confederate munitions depots during the war. Sarah watched through the rifle scope, her heart pounding, but her hands steady. She'd been raised to hunt from the time she could hold a bow. The rifle was different, but the principle remained. Breathe, focus, squeeze. 10 minutes passed in tense silence. Cole had infiltrated the perimeter, using the shadows and the predictable patrol patterns to his advantage. He moved from cover to cover, approaching the central cabin where Prescott would be meeting with Night Hunter. Through a window he spotted them, Prescott's corpulent form gesturing emphatically, while Night Hunter stood impassively. On a table between them lay a map and what appeared to be a deed. Cole positioned himself by the door, waiting for Maxwell's diversion. When it came, it exceeded all expectations. The explosion ripped through the night, far more powerful than planned. The powder magazine must have been fuller than they'd estimated. The western side of the camp disappeared in a fireball that lit the canyon like daylight. In the ensuing chaos, Cole burst through the cabin door. Prescott and Night Hunter whirled in surprise, reaching for weapons. Cole's Colt was already drawn. "Nobody moves," he commanded. Night Hunter's hand froze above his knife. Prescott's eyes widened in recognition and fury. "Morgan, you fool!" A secondary explosion rocked the canyon, unplanned and worrying. Outside, gunfire erupted as Prescott's men and Night Hunter's warriors reacted to the attack. "We're leaving," Cole said, motioning with his Colt. "Both of you, now." Night Hunter's eyes narrowed. "Why would I go anywhere with you, white man?" "Because Sarah is alive," Cole replied, "and she knows the true location of the mine. This man," he nodded toward Prescott, "is lying to you." Before Night Hunter could respond, the cabin door burst open again. Two of Prescott's guards rushed in, guns drawn. Cole dove to the side as gunfire erupted, rolling behind an overturned table. The room descended into chaos. Night Hunter seized the opportunity to escape through a side door. Prescott lunged for a shotgun mounted on the wall. Cole fired twice, hitting one guard in the shoulder and the other in the leg. Disabling shots. He'd seen enough death in the war to last a lifetime. Prescott grabbed the shotgun and swung it toward Cole. Time seemed to slow. Cole could see the man's finger tightening on the trigger, the hatred in his eyes. A rifle shot cracked from outside. Prescott staggered, the shotgun blast going wide and splintering the ceiling beams. Sarah had made good use of the Winchester. Cole lunged forward, tackling the wounded Prescott and wrenching the shotgun from his grasp. The mine owner howled in pain and rage as Cole bound his hands with a leather strap. Outside, the firefight intensified. Cole dragged Prescott toward the door, using him as a shield. "Call them off," Cole demanded, pressing his Colt to Prescott's temple. "Now! Stand down," Prescott bellowed, his voice carrying despite his pain. "Stand down, damn you all!" Gradually, the gunfire subsided. Cole emerged from the cabin, keeping Prescott in front of him. The mining camp had become a battlefield. Wounded men lay scattered around the burning buildings while others took cover, weapons trained on Cole and his captive. "Where's Maxwell?" Cole called out. "Here," came the response, as his old sergeant limped into view, blood staining his left trouser leg. "Got winged, but I'll live." Sarah appeared from the ridge above, rifle still trained on Prescott. Her expression was fierce in the firelight. "Night Hunter escaped," Cole informed her, "but we've got what we came for." A new voice spoke from the shadows. "Not quite." Night Hunter stepped into the light, flanked by 4 warriors with rifles aimed at Cole. The war chief's face was unreadable, his eyes reflecting the flames. "The woman," Night Hunter said, "she comes with me." "No," Cole replied calmly. "She doesn't." For a long moment, no one moved. The only sound was the crackling of flames and Prescott's labored breathing. Sarah descended from her position, approaching with measured steps. "I will speak with him," she said to Cole. "In our language." Cole hesitated, then nodded once. Sarah stepped forward and addressed Night Hunter in Apache, her words flowing with authority and conviction. Though Cole couldn't understand the language, he recognized the cadence of someone offering terms. Night Hunter's expression remained stern, but something in his eyes shifted as Sarah spoke. Her hands moved to illustrate points, gesturing to the land around them, to Prescott, to Cole and Maxwell. Finally, she fell silent. Night Hunter considered her words, then responded, shorter, but with equal gravity. Sarah turned to Cole. He will accept a council between our peoples, shared profits from the mine, peace between our borders. Her eyes narrowed at Prescott, and justice for this snake who would turn Apache against Apache. How do I know he'll honor this? Cole asked. Sarah translated the question. Night Hunter stepped forward, drawing his knife, a movement that caused every gun to lift slightly, but instead of attacking, he cut his palm, offering the bloodied hand to Cole. Blood oath, Sarah explained, sacred among our people. Cole holstered his Colt and drew his own knife. Without hesitation, he sliced his palm and clasped Night Hunter's hand. Their blood mingled, a pact more binding than any paper treaty. Prescott watched in impotent rage. This is treason, he spat. I'll see you all hang. The only hanging to be done, came yet another voice, might be yours, Prescott. Sheriff Thompson rode into the cleared space, flanked by a dozen armed men from Silver Creek. He surveyed the destruction with a professional eye. Got word of an explosion. Came to investigate. His gaze settled on Prescott, then moved to Cole. What exactly am I looking at, Morgan? Cole explained everything. The illegal deals, the forced marriage, the attack on his ranch, and Prescott's plans to steal Apache land in violation of the territorial treaties. Thompson dismounted slowly, considering the evidence. Serious charges. His ledgers are in that cabin, Cole added. Names of officials he's bribed. Payments to hired guns. All of it. The sheriff nodded to two of his men, who entered the cabin. They emerged moments later with a leather-bound book. Well, Mr. Prescott, Thompson said after examining a few pages, looks like we have some talking to do. The aftermath unfolded over days. Thompson, despite his initial skepticism, proved to be a man of integrity once presented with irrefutable evidence. Prescott was taken to Tucson to stand trial for corruption, attempted murder, and violating territorial treaties. A week later, Cole stood on his newly rebuilt porch, watching the sunrise. The barn's charred remains had been cleared away, and construction on a new one had begun. Maxwell had brought over men from his ranch to help, along with materials from Silver Creek, where the Merchant Council, freed from Prescott's influence, had voted to support Cole. Sarah emerged from the cabin, coffee cups in hand. Her shoulder had healed well, leaving only a scar to mark her ordeal. The council meets tomorrow, she said, handing him a cup. Night Hunter has agreed to your terms. The mine will provide for both our peoples. Cole nodded, the weight of recent events evident in the new lines around his eyes. And you? Will you return to your people now? Sarah considered the question, her gaze traveling across the rugged landscape that had nearly claimed both their lives. My grandfather taught me that home isn't always where you're born, she replied. Sometimes it's where you choose to make your stand. She turned to face him fully. I've made mine. The simple declaration carried more weight than any flowery pledge. Cole understood. They were both survivors, people remade by hardship and choice. From the south, a rider approached, Maxwell leading a string of fresh horses. Since the confrontation at Diablo Canyon, the old cavalryman had become a frequent visitor to Cole's ranch, their shared experience forging a bond that transcended their different paths after the war. Ryder came through my place this morning, Maxwell called as he dismounted. Brings news of a gang moving north from the border, sheriffs forming a posse. Cole exchanged glances with Sarah, a silent communication born of shared danger and mutual respect. Trouble has a way of finding us, he observed. Or perhaps, Sarah suggested with a hint of a smile, we have a way of finding it. Cole checked his Winchester with practiced efficiency, then turned his gaze toward the horizon, where dust clouds marked the approach of whatever challenge awaited them next. Some men spend their lives running from their demons. Cole Morgan had learned to face his, not alone, but alongside those who understood that on the frontier, honor wasn't just about how you lived, but the boundaries you refused to cross, even when survival itself hung in the balance. In Silver Creek, the news of Prescott's downfall spread quickly. The territorial governor himself came to oversee the transition of power and witness the historic treaty signing between the settlers and the Apache. Nighthunter and Cole stood as representatives of their respective communities, their blood oath formalized in writing that would be sent to Washington. "Never thought I'd see the day," Sheriff Thompson admitted to Cole after the ceremony. "Apache and settlers sharing land and profit. Sometimes it takes a common enemy to find common ground," Cole replied. The silver mine began operation under joint management, with Apache workers learning mining techniques and settlers learning sustainable practices from their native counterparts. The wealth it generated flowed into both communities, building schools, improving irrigation, and bringing a measure of prosperity unknown in the harsh territory. This was his land, his responsibility, his redemption, and he would defend it alongside the family he'd found, not through blood, but through honor.